like right at 2 o'clock. As you can see, I've done nothing today but sit in the sun. Um, I've had like cluster migraines the last few days, and it's been like really difficult to be me with my neuromuscular disorder and stuff. But then this whole like Vicky White, Casey White thing happened, and I didn't want to talk about it because it really hit close to home for me, being a retired parole officer and knowing so many people that had worked in that setting or still worked in that setting, and knowing some of the intricate occurrences that plague those type of jobs. But then I thought, you know something, I'm gonna talk about it because everybody's been asking me, sending me emails, sending me questions. I thought, I feel good enough right now. I'll talk about it. Hi, Rikers, Mimi. I look like trash, but y'all know I don't care what I look like. I come here to talk about important things. And I think this is important because I think a lot of people are not looking at this Vicky Casey White phenomenon appropriately or adequately or as a complete picture. Um, so, and this is one of those areas that I have to tread very lightly because I mean no disrespect to Miss White that has passed. Um, I don't mean any disrespect to her family, and I don't want this to come off as disrespectful. So I have to tread very carefully to share what I'm going to say and the knowledge that I have without like making someone out to be a negative. Because when you hear everything, I think you'll understand the mental health aspect of this rather than the news media reach. Everyone's been wanting my opinion. They've hounded me for a few days now. So when this happened, I knew immediately that there was going to be something traumatic in this woman's history. The second day when I heard the story that she had a 16 to 17 year just like unblemished record but had very few emotional attachments to coworkers, that confirmed it for me. When you have someone that works somewhere for 16, 17 years, even if it's in a correction setting, you have someone that builds attachments. As human beings, we're made to build attachments. When you don't build attachments, it's either because you don't want to, based off a trauma response that you've learned to like stifle or control. You have a reason not to, or you're incapable. Because otherwise, as a human, you would be building attachments. It's what we're meant to do. We're herd animals. You're supposed to build attachments. So for me, that was a huge red flag from the very beginning. It was like, okay, I know that this woman had something else going on because she worked here forever, but and was noted as a stellar employee, but had very little emotional attachments to where people can, they can like give you a surface perspective of her, but in depth, no one really knew her in depth. And then her mother gave an interview that said, "This is not my daughter. This is not the daughter I know." And that was the third nail for me that closed the case. We had someone that had a mental break. The complete secondary persona that came out of her, I believe, was due to a mental break. When I look at her case, I immediately see that while she was functioning very well in her job and getting accommodations, she was not completely functioning socially as she should have. And then if you look at her private life, you can tell that there were issues there because she had been divorced from her husband, her ex-husband that was disabled, that had Parkinson's and was disabled, but they had never moved out of the house. They had stayed in the home. She was willing to let things just be. No, was that a coping mechanism? Could she not change things? Was she incapable of speaking out, voicing, and changing her life? Or was she simply just thinking something someday will happen? We don't know. But it is a normal kind of character issue for people that have mental breaks to have been kind of like this person that is like seen as pious or patient and so passive by the community and such a good person, and then all of a sudden they do something and we're like, what the hell? And that is because that mental mind frame of denying yourself to soothe others, denying yourself to aid others, denying yourself to benefit others, or just denying yourself to feel power, it's the same denial that comes from an anorexic's brain when they control their eating disorder. It's power placement. It's not really a personality trait. It's a power placement, and you're either in control of your happiness or your unhappiness, but it's still you're in power. Which are you in power of? I believe she was in power of her unhappiness for the majority of her life, and I believe she just did not have the energy to think things could change. I think she was probably not in the best marriage, wasn't in the best place after the marriage. Probably the only thing that she had going for her was work. And probably had she not come across this specific inmate, she probably would still be working. And probably nothing would have changed. With people that are in these types of antisocial, melodramatic, denial, kind of like, it's almost like a borderline personality that doesn't always present, but it's in there. And then one day the bridge breaks and the other persona takes over. So I think very much she probably had some trauma issues that kept her quiet and passive. But after the husband passed away and life started to change, I don't think she could really pace the ball rolling downhill. I think she felt probably one new experience and one new emotional endorphin rush, and she was just at that point addicted and needed more and more because she had deprived herself so long of these emotional responses. She now wanted all of them, and she wanted all of them now. It's like kind of me with a box of Little Debbie's. Don't even bring them in the house. I have no control. So a lot of this for me is probably, and people are like, are you mad? I'm not mad. I'm sad about the entire thing. It benefited no one. It was good for no one. It doesn't reflect well on in any capacity on any, from any perspective that you look at this, from a family perspective, from a professional perspective, from an individual. It doesn't bode well for anyone. I think this woman was, for some reason, terribly unhappy and unable to express that. And I believe the one person that probably had the psychopathic ability, and I'm talking about full psychopathy. I'm talking about someone that stabbed a 58-year-old, and Vicky was 56. This man has a type. He zeroed in on her and probably recognized that weakness. And y'all, people do two things when they're in prison. Now, I'm a retired parole officer and retired counselor. I worked and supervised violent male offenders, and mostly murderers and violent male offenders, sex offenders. I did interstate compact for other states, and then I counseled for youth in state's custody that were there for trauma backgrounds and addiction issues. I've dealt with a lot of people in bad positions. There are two things people do when they're in prison. They either better themselves or they better their criminal career. Those are the only two things you do in prison. And I dare anybody to try to tell me otherwise. Because that's all you do. You either devote your energy to bettering yourself or you devote your energy to not getting caught again. This man obviously devoted his energy to bettering his criminal capacity. And he was very good. He was a very good student of reading people emotionally. That is probably why his victims were women. And his history reads kind of like a domestic spat through every age gap. And that's probably why he was so easily able, I can talk today, easily able to master Vicky's issues. He probably recognized them immediately. Because while that may not stick out to other people, you may think, well, she's just a quiet woman. She just keeps to herself. She doesn't want people to know her business. And the boundaries that we as a society have put up in the last 3 years are 20-foot fences compared to, the little barbed wire fences we had, a few years ago. So people are less inclined to poke the bear and ask you what's wrong. People don't care anymore. So probably her coworkers were probably not emotionally there when she lost her ex-husband, when she was going through all of that. And that still hurt her. That's someone that you're still bonded to. It doesn't matter in what capacity. That's still going to hurt someone. It changed her whole living environment. And that's going to change your emotional environment when your whole living environment changes. But I think for the most part, I think it was a freeing experience. But unfortunately, instead of having this great epiphany and running off with this new freedom, she ran into the worst possible human being that she could have run into, and it was someone who could see the trauma and the problems written in her body, on her face, in her body language. And I think he probably is just a master manipulator, probably by birth, um, and is just someone that is doesn't know how to have an interaction with someone unless it is a beneficial one for him. He's just one of those, probably very close to more of, not even narcissistic, probably histrionic narcissism, um, and psychopathy. He's probably one of the closer ones that I've seen in the last few years from watching this case and the behaviors and the amount of effort into this that was placed into this. Because I'm telling you, this has been being planned probably since right after her ex-husband passed away, if not way before that. And that may have just been the break that they needed for this closing of the house sale and stuff like that. This could have been going on long before that. But he read something on her that everyone else overlooked, or nobody else wanted to ask about, or nobody else cared about. And so for me, it's very sad to know that this human being was trying to function in a society that didn't notice probably several red flags, because she was functioning. And you can have a breakdown and come back from them stronger, but you have to work through it, process it, and handle it correctly so it doesn't alter your life and alter in a negative way everything that you're handling. And no one stepped in. No one even noticed. And what's even more sad is when one of her emotional attachments she gained from him should have changed her persona, her demeanor, and should have given her a brighter, lighter step in, a lighter mood, and maybe a smile that she wouldn't have caught, or nothing changed. So that tells me that this has been a long time coping space for her to stay in. Is this just to be a functioning human with no attachments? Um, so it's sad because I know that she must have had, hi Denise, she must have had a very sad life. She must have had a very lonely life. She must have had a life where she felt she was not in control and was not getting any kind of gratification or compassion or emotional responses, from people that she obviously needed, she desired. You do not go and ask for love from the man in the white van trying to give you candy unless you're starved. You just don't, people. So, we've got some trauma, we've got some problems going on there. What is scary for me is that the people she worked with for so long did not notice, did not have any capacity of knowledge in this whatsoever. Casey White picked up on immediately, because his whole life has been a manipulation of other people to benefit me. And when he's not out there manipulating others to benefit him, he's studying to help him manipulate others to benefit him. And he just lucked up and got put in the right jail with the right person at the right time and at the worst part of life possible for them. Do I think if she had been in a better balanced era of her life that this would happen? Probably not. But I don't know how long she had been in this kind of stratus of life. I don't know how long she'd been in this layer of life where she had just been functioning. I feel extremely bad for the family, because you do feel almost betrayed and resentful towards your family member that has these breakdowns and has these persona flips, and you just kind of feel betrayed. And so the family's probably hurting tenfold of what they normally would to lose someone. It's sad to think about it. If the relationship between her and Mr. White were real or not, we don't know. We weren't there. We can't tell. We don't know if he's remorseful. We don't know if he's, but I would say from background, if he is, it will be short-lived, because he's a manipulator and benefits from people. I'm glad you popped in, Annette. But this has been very interesting for me, because people are like, Why didn't we know? It's because you didn't ask questions. It's because you didn't watch. It's because you didn't want to know. It's because it's easier to go through life and say I don't want to know than to actually care about people and invest time and emotions and yourself, you know. And it's sad because this woman was in such a state for such a long time that even someone that she knew was a predator, that she knew was dangerous, that she knew was not someone she needed to bond with in any way, still became like her little hero, her little savior emotionally in her mind, and talked her in to the majority of this. I said the majority of this because I believe there was part of her that once the ball started rolling downhill and she started having instant gratification and endorphins and feeling again and having life events and saying, "Oh, this is happiness. This is what I've been missing." I think she probably went all in. She probably punched the gas pedal, and it's because it was an unhealthy mental breakdown. She was doing unhealthy things, but they felt really good. We all know those things. We all know those things. Imagine not having that feeling for 20 years and then finally getting it back. Would you be able to balance? It'd be very difficult, wouldn't it? He knew that. He used that. And I believe she was probably, she was probably vested more than I probably want to admit. We'll just say that. Now, will new information come out and potentially change my mind? Yes, if new information comes out and it gives me a different perspective, then I will update. But this is just how I felt about this when I've seen these stories and stuff. And it's from the day one that they left, the initial feeling I had from the first two stories I read, it's been consistent until the information when they caught them. It's sad that she made the decision she made when they caught them, but she made that decision because she knew the breach she had created between her past life and this new persona was too great to overcome. She could not go back in and do the 20 years of hiding herself again. She could not go back to that lifestyle. She could not go back to that performance because she chose that over accountability. But she had been missed accountability for her entire career. I mean, she must have been really sad. She must have been really in a really bad place. And that hurts me because I don't think anyone deserves to feel that way. Um, I don't think anyone deserves to feel so bad about themselves or what they've been through to think that the best way out is to end it. There's always someone that cares for you, and there's always someone that you can reach out to. And so that hurts me to think that in that last moment, it hurts me to think that she had potentially lived more in the last 11 days than she had in probably 20 years. But it also makes me sad to think that she thought that was a good enough marker to end it on. There was nothing more. That if she went back to accountability, she couldn't handle it. She couldn't go back to that. She knew what she'd be walking into. She knows what a jail is. She knows the living arrangement. She knows the lifestyle. And she couldn't do it. So whatever drove her to abandon that part of her brain that told her you can't go back to that because you know how strict that is, it must have been so powerful to override her common sense. And that's why I'm saying she must have had a really big trauma going on. No spark left. That's a great way. Yeah, caregiver burnout is huge. My mother's going through it right now. It's not good. It's a place where you get really, really, really just dissociative almost. You just put it on autopilot and just try to get through your days. And I can only imagine what it must have felt like for her to, even when you get out of the marriage, to still be trapped in the lifestyle. She probably felt imprisoned everywhere she was. Because I'm just going to tell you, people, I spent a lot of time in custody myself as a parole officer, because when you have to go in those prisons, whether it's a county jail or a big prison, and they slam that door and they lock it, and you hear that, and you're locked down, you know you're in there with them. And I jokingly said to the judge one day, I've spent so much of my life in prisons handling revocation hearings and paperwork, and I should at least get like 1 or 2 misdemeanors free. And he just looked at me and he was like, that's not the way this works. And I was like, I'm just saying. I have a sense of humor. But you do very much feel like you're here for a punitive reason. I'm here voluntarily. I mean, I get a little bit of money, but is it, and I felt a really big call to help people and to help with the drug addiction and to help with a lot of people that just needed to restructure their life. And I had a very good caseload, and I had very good rapport with my caseload. I had a very good experience as a parole officer. Yeah, you meet some people that you start to learn things you don't want to know, but they're in society just as well. They just haven't been caught yet. And so that's the one thing also I want to point out is all of her coworkers like that for she was voted like the best corrections employee for so many years, and she was the best employee, and I was like ignorance. Ignorance or the lack of knowledge of something does not mean that it's on this pedestal and unblemished. It just means you're ignorant. She had a life, and from afar, they were ignorant of 98% of it. And they chose to remain ignorant because it looked really good at that level. But if they scratched the surface, got to know her, they would know she had issues. And I'm like, she was a good officer because you didn't know what she was doing, because she was smart enough to hide it. And I'm like, so she wasn't really a good officer. She probably worked for several years but seems like the last few there have been some issues there. It's just sad. Well, and people would rather have their rose-colored glasses on than to know the truth, and they would rather have this great fictional idea of what life is than to actually live a real life with real issues and real hazards and real struggles. And so it's always funny when I see a girl that spent like 4 hours on her makeup and 2 hours on her hair to come on here. Of course, I look like trash, but I don't care. But then they'll come on here and do a 15-minute video. And that 15 minutes is more important than the 7 hours they spent getting ready. But they were detached from people for 7 hours to get ready for 15 minutes of interaction to people they can't even talk to. Why didn't you just spend 30 minutes on getting dressed and go into your community and talk to real people? And that is, where do you want to get your emotional support? That's another issue that Vicky had. Where do we want to get our emotional support? We all pick and choose where we get it. For a number of years, she had probably gotten it only from her family. Seems like from her mother and maybe her siblings. She was up for accommodation again this year. That kind of surprised me too. And that should make them reevaluate their entire system. I'm just saying, just reevaluate your entire system. Talk to people. Start to create communication in your workforce, because you're going to learn things, mister. You're going to learn them, and you don't want to know them, but you need to know them. But we all walk around with these people that have the ability to manipulate us. They're around us. They're in society as well as they're outside of society. So you've got to know where you want to put your energy and where you want to get your emotional support from. And you pick good people, because if you pick these people that will siphon from you and only use you to better themselves or promote themselves, this is what you end up. You end up being someone's cover. 11 days. Now, had they told her on the day that she was going to break him out, hey, I had a dream that you broke this guy out and in 11 days you were dead, would she still have chosen if she had had a glimpse? At the last few days there before she made this decision, I honestly think she was so far gone she probably would have gone through with it. She was so invested at that point. And I think the only way forward she knew was just to keep going. She didn't know how to ask for help at that point. She didn't know how to back down and go backwards. But the one thing that made me think this, and people are like, well, where did you get your initial opinion? I'll tell you where I got my initial opinion from about that 3 seconds video from the Sally Port where she's walking him to the police car. That's where I drew my complete whole opinion about this case, was those 3 seconds of video where she's walking him to the police car in the Sally Port. She goes out the door before him, holds it way too long for him, and then when she goes through the outside external door, she turns her back completely to him and walks on. I don't turn my back completely to anybody. And a lot of it was where I was a parole officer for a long time, and it's just you don't. You learn your weak spots, and you learn to not do these things. I don't turn my back to anybody. I don't even like to be in a Walmart aisle with somebody walking the other way behind me. I know I'm paying attention. That tells me she had some trust in him. She had a lot of trust in him. And she had enough trust that if somebody had been looking for procedural issues in that jail, when she was looking at the ground, looking at paperwork, looking at anyone but the prisoner, the violent offender that she had and was physically responsible for, it should have been a huge red flag. And then when she turned her back on him to walk to the car before him to open the door, huge red flag. You don't turn your back. You don't get that far from your offender. You don't give them that much leash. You don't. But the kicker was, in the last couple seconds, he kind of squeezes his muscles and turns to the camera and does like this little head motion. That's arrogance. That's that chin jutting up. That's arrogance. That is like the dog that just crapped on your yard that stops at the gate on the way out and struts turf and then goes on. He's leaving, but it's on his terms. Oh, I saw that and I went, oh, where was Tower? Tower, where were you? Hello, people in Tower? Did anyone else see that? Because me as a parole officer would have been like, whoa, go get them. Go get them right now. Bring them back. She needs a second. No, we're not doing this. That was enough to tell me there was something not right going on there. Because that violated not only every, like, career-based training that you would ever get in that environment, it violates every common sense vibe in your body between predator and prey. So those 3 seconds of video were enough for me to know that there was a huge imbalance of power here. And that something was bad wrong. You don't get a huge imbalance of power over someone that's in a position of power unless you are really a master manipulator. And you only really get a masterfully manipulate people if they are super, 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 super weaker than you. Or if something has happened to break their spirit. And to break them mentally and emotionally. Otherwise, it's human nature to fight back. It's human nature to pick up on the red flags. But when you're so starved and you're not there, you're not present because you've been on autopilot. You will literally siphon whatever happiness you can get. Once you break through the gate and state that you desire this emotion, you want it and you will take it. So for me, this has been a sad thing. It's been very difficult to watch. It's been sad because you know that not only the corrections officers, the sheriff's department, the district attorney, and the court staff, those offenders, it's going to upset the balance of the offenders in the jail as well. And so that whole jail is going to go through a whole topsy-turvy pecking order hierarchy reestablishment. And that's hell. It's not fun. It's bad. And so they're going to be in turmoil for, in about a year or 18 months, reestablishing. The inmates are going to be in turmoil because they're going to be in turmoil. And it's just not going to be a good place. It's not a good place to be in as a corrections facility. It's not a good place to be in as law enforcement. But you've got to look, you've got to step back and get the bigger scope of the snow globe picture here. And you've got to see that this woman, even in her own home, was living in her home with her ex-husband. She had not escaped any of the decisions she had made in life, even though she had terminated a relationship, terminated a marriage. She still had not broken away. She still had not had the courage to change things. She was still living in a home where she was not happy because they divorced for a reason. They obviously were not happy. There was no attachment, and she stayed there. I can imagine she must have felt very much imprisoned at home and then imprisoned at work, because she technically was imprisoned at work. And the longer you work in that society within society, the more, if you're not careful, you will start to accept those societal rules and take them out of the facility and apply them. And if that starts to happen, you should quit. If you go and take those societal rules and you walk out those doors with them and you take them home and you apply them at home or you apply them to friendships or to the outside world anyway, you do not need to work in a prison. You need to, when you slide that door and shut it, to compartmentalize and walk away. You can't take that with you because you cannot function with those rules in that society. And you want to live in that society, not that one. She was not where she could make those decisions, I believe, at that time. And it's sad. It's sad. because she must have been a very broken and unhappy woman to have been in a place to have been used. And I'm not making her out to be a victim, because very much in many aspects of this, she was probably very happy to assist, you know. That's the nicest way I can put it. But it's just sad to see someone's life extinguished. And to have a brief look at the beginning, you know, the last 20 years of their life, and know that they probably were not happy. Very little happiness, very little consistency, very little emotional consistency, love, contact, you know, with people that are filling your gas tank emotionally. She didn't have that. And you don't get that at a corrections facility employment. So you really need a really good family and a really good social life to be in law enforcement, because never the twain should meet. So you need to fill your gas tank at home, and you need to not allow anyone else to siphon it at work, and you need to make sure that those two worlds never cohabitate mentally in your mind. And it's very difficult, and I think she probably started out, was doing really well, and life takes its toll. But it comes down to the decisions she made. She's accountable and responsible for those. The decisions he made, and he's accountable and responsible for those. And it doesn't matter if she was manipulated or not, because she would have still been held accountable, but at this point she held herself accountable. And it's sad, because this entire story is loss and trauma, and like it's like unfulfilled aspirations and unlived life. So 11 days was her almost 20 years of a career worth those 11 days. What would she say if we could have asked her? What would we have learned about her mental health and about the toll of her life and the decisions she had made? And we'll never know, because we can't ask her now. But for her to make that decision to not give us the opportunity because accountability scared her more than the barrel of that gun tells me a lot. It tells me that whatever they were doing, she was enjoying and participating within, because she knew she was going to be held accountable for it. And that she knew whatever she said would not hold up in a courtroom, and certainly would not hold up with the people that knew her. And she tells us that in her actions by the last decision she made. So it's just sad. No one should be put mentally, emotionally in this spot. No one should be I don't know, it's almost like he just kind of took control of her. And you normally see that between like inmates, and you don't see it between inmates and COs, very rarely. You normally see it between inmates and the levels, the society within the inmate population. But whatever they do, whatever decisions they need to make, they need to treat Casey White as a very dangerous man, more so than they even thought before now. They need to rescreen anyone that is going to be around him. They need to do a psych re-exam and rethink the people that they put in charge of him. And they need to reevaluate the structure of their jails. And they probably need to get on a rotational demographic internally within their jail, so that they upset the prison population rather than the prison population upsetting the CO population. Shake the ant farm, don't let the ants shake the farm. That sounds mean, it sounds crass, and y'all are watching me going, oh, that lady's mean. I am. I don't want to be. I never want to be mean. I want to be nice and happy and friendly to everybody and smile, but I also know what human beings are capable of. And I worked closely with a lot of them that were capable of extinguishing multiple human lives. So I'm going to shake the ant farm, because I ain't going to let the ant take the farm. So, you know, y'all can think I'm mean, but this really, when I look at it, my heart breaks for everyone. And my heart, honestly, is actually not callous toward Casey White. It's a human being that probably has never had the emotional capacity to live within our society from day one. And the only way he found he could function was to literally incapacitate others. Where do you have to be and what do you have to go through to be there? You know, he's been through some crap too, I'm sure. But can you reach him now? So, and even if you can reach him now, with the level of crimes he's committed and stuff, you know, he doesn't get another opportunity to clear his name and to try again in society. He's done proven himself that he can't be part of it. It's going to be a long time before anyone will ever think about a parole option on him, if they ever do. Because, you know, he's in there for potentially, allegedly, stabbing a 58-year-old woman. So this is just a sad story, a sad event, a sad disclaimer for the way we're going socially. Maybe we all that are trying to function in society need to actually care about each other. Maybe we need to be concerned when we see people's behavior change, or be concerned when we see people that seem to not be emotionally invested in anything. Maybe we need to ask more questions. Maybe we need to have a more open heart. Maybe we need to have a more open mind. Maybe we need to just pay attention. Maybe we need to realize that the world does not come out of our butts every morning and we're the sole center of the universe. And maybe if we all do that, maybe society will start to correct a little bit. Do I see it occurring? No. Not with what's been going on in our society between, you know, the imbalance between the whole political predation in this country is just stupid. But anyway, that is my mindset on this whole Vicky White, Casey White issue. Go back and watch the 3 seconds of Sally Port video. And watch it through my eyes that I've just described to you as a parole officer, what I saw. And see now, someone else should have seen that. You work with this population, this demographic, this dangerous clientele every day, and you don't notice that? I noticed it. Because either he was plot blank stupid and just made it through 16, 17 years of her career with dangerous people by being completely so stupid that Jesus was taking care of her every day, or she had too much trust in him and she just negated all protocol and regulations, and she showed it in her body language when she went through that Sally Port door and she walked away from him. Well, you know, my family to a large degree was dysfunctional, but I think we're all dysfunctional to a certain degree. But I was the callous family member that was like, done. Nope, you know, back away slowly. But it was because, you know, for a long time, I didn't get to control my environment. And when I could control my environment, I wanted my environment to be my environment. And I didn't want to have to deal with other people's crap. And I wanted a calm environment at home. I wanted a happy environment. And so I constructed that. And a lot of people got mad when I constructed a happy, safe environment. But it benefited my family so much. And I think everyone sees that now. But I was the callous family member at one point. And it's sad to say, but it's you know, it's being responsible to sometimes step back and say, no, I'm sorry, this is not working, this is unhealthy, and I'm going to go over here. But it takes a lot of support to make those hard decisions. And I don't think she had enough support. And at the stage of the game she's at, where she's actually planning with this man that she's been trained and counseled about in her career and training for years, I don't know at that point if anyone could have reached her, but I really wish someone had tried. I really wish someone had noticed. I really wish the red flags would have stood out a little bit more. Um, and I do a lot of people watching because that's how you get a lot of information. And just those 3 seconds of video were enough for me. But I certainly hope that now people in these careers start to pay more attention to their coworkers, pay more attention to body language, to that nonverbal communication, because that's really about 90% of how we communicate. And start to pay attention to people that are around you that are human beings that need a check-in every once in a while, need to be patted on the back every once in a while, need to be, smacked on the back of the hand every once in a while. We need emotional consistency and stability within our little societies that we have built. If we don't, if we have no rules or we establish our own rules, then rules become less important, especially as the instant gratification meter goes up. So I just think she got entangled, and she was entangled probably half because of mental health and probably half because she just couldn't take it anymore. It's just sad. It's sad. It's almost like she was borderline personality waiting for the trigger moment, waiting for the trigger person. And then it just, but then you have to look at all the planning. She was in a gray area at that point. She could have gone either way, but she chose to go on with it. So it just, to me, it makes me want to think was something else going on, was something even more wrong. So, but we'll never know. We'll never know. And I know the mother said, this is not my child. This is not the Vicky I know. And that's very normal for people that have a late presentation of borderline personality. Normally it presents late teens, 20s, when life really gets hairy. But if she was in a functioning little isolated mode, she could have maintained that. I don't know. It's just I'll have to think on it and look on it and watch more body language and get more information and think about it a little bit more, because you can't really. I don't like to make snap judgments. That's just where my brain wants to go as far as diagnosis go. But honestly, the diagnosis here is a sick society. We don't care enough about people to check up and ask about people, and we deprive each other that we're 2 inches away from everyday working. We deprive each other so much that we will then accept love from the darndest of places. And like I said, you have to be hungry to take that candy from the man in the van. You have to be starving to willingly get in that van with that man. So that tells me her mindset was not in a good place. But anyway, that's my thoughts on it. That's where I've been. Everybody really wanted to pick my brain, so there's my brain laid out for you. I mean, no disrespect to her family. I mean, no disrespect to anyone that knew her. My heart actually bleeds for the woman. I just feel sad about the whole thing, because I can think back, and there have been 2 times that I've had concern about someone in the same scenario. So I'm not untouched by the phenomenon either. I've been concerned about people in this job or in this employment career for the same reason. So it's personal for me too. But it's just, we need to care for each other more. And families, shake up the vibe, break up the monotony, ask questions. Don't fear being a family member and saying, how are you? I've noticed you're not doing this that you used to enjoy, or I noticed you're not doing this anymore, you're not eating this anymore, you're not behaving like this anymore, you're not wearing this color anymore. Simple little indicators and simple little questions can start a whole conversation that can change a life. But we just don't talk to each other anymore. Or if we do, it's through a screen, and we just cuss people and treat them like crap. Society really needs to rethink what we're doing right now, because it's not working. If you look at society, you know, a couple hundred years ago to now, the degradation is just scary. The way we treat people, just the interaction, the vocabulary, the communication. It's just sad. It's just sad. But anyway, that's where my mindset was. If you have a different perspective, or you have a different thought pattern, or you want to share something when this loads, when the live finally loads, comment. And I don't mind making a video or doing another live to address it. I had a lot of people that wanted a video, but honestly, where I live with the internet I have, uploading a video of this length would have been midnight before it had been uploaded. Let's just be honest. So this is the quickest way to allow people to get my information. But when this does upload to my channel, if you have a different mindset, put it in the comments below and I will respond. We could talk about it. I like different perspectives. I like it when people pick up on different things that I may not have picked up on. Is my perspective the only one? Absolutely not. There's probably 5 million ways you could talk about this one little occurrence. I think we should probably talk about every way possible, because this is something that never needs to happen again in our society. Talk about it. Chase away the stigma. Talk about it. I hope that wherever she is, she's found a happiness and peace that she obviously was not experiencing here. I hope that he is held accountable. And I hope that he has learned something from this, which my body says highly doubt it, but I hope he has learned something from this. Maybe this is going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back and changes him. Probably not. Could be. Let's all try to be positive. But let's do things so that we stop these things from happening. Let's start to take care of people, love people, ask questions, and care enough to be the person that irritates people to care. I'm going to irritate you enough to call and check on you. I'm going to irritate you enough to ask you how you are. I'm going to irritate you enough to see if you're okay. Be that person. Those are good people. So go irritate somebody. That's what I'm going to leave you telling you. Go irritate somebody, but do it in love. I'm going to go irritate Oscar because I'm going to take his blankie away and wash it. He's going to be very mad at me. I'm going to have a mad dog for the afternoon, but he'll deal with it. But that's my view on it. Everybody, brain vomit in the comments below, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye, guys.